Hey, friends, welcome to episode 589 of the My 123 Cents podcast. I am Kevin Hunsperger, joined this week by Chad Housen on the West Coast. And go ahead. Yes, let's do it now. You got the shirt, you got the face.
I got Santahausen and Marty McFlyhausen. Like Marty McHausen.
I love it.
Ben McFly. I don't know. Whatever you want to call him.
So, obviously, the topic this week, if the graphic, which I hope works when I try to make it, didn't tip it off, we are going to be talking about Danhausen this week on the podcast. Kind of shifted gears because on a scale from 1 to 10, Chad, how surprised were you? I know there was speculation, but there was speculation about a lot of people being in that box for the show Elimination Chamber. How surprised were you that Danhausen is the one that emerged from that box?
I would say I was a little surprised. Like you said, there were rumors and innuendo that it was going to be Danhausen.
Yeah.
And I believe we said a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the box initially that if it was going to be a person, Danhausen is the only person that would seemingly make sense.
Right. Yeah.
And I do think having the coffin inside
Yes.
worked. I have other feelings about it that we'll get into, but I just want to put a little disclaimer out because I figure we'll talk Elimination Chamber 2 a little bit in this.
Yeah.
And I thinking about my thoughts last night, I have 3 points of view. One is old man who understands the importance of wrestling in everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling fan who looks for entertainment, and IWC wrestling fan who has to be critical of everything. And so I'll give you opinions ranging all 3 of those spectrums throughout this show. So just be prepared for.
And my intent was not to do an Elimination Chamber recap, but it is obviously the biggest show
this week.
This week, yeah, because next week there'll be something bigger, and
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb though and start off the conversation, and we're going to talk about Danhausen here more in a minute, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say for the second year in a row, I have been more impressed with the Elimination Chamber than the Royal Rumble. And at one time, it was not like that. So I guess from your perspective, give me your thoughts on some of the Elimination Chamber, what you liked, what you didn't like, or your perspectives or points of view.
Yeah. Well, first, I didn't actually get to watch the entire show. I watched the women's Elimination Chamber match live, and then went about things that I do on Saturday night. And then I came back and I watched the AJ Becky Lynch match. And then for some reason, again, I tried installing the ESPN Unlimited app and using cable subscription to log in. Could not get that. Couldn't even figure out how to add ESPN Unlimited to Spectrum. So again, one of the major complaints over the last year is the changing to ESPN and it being more of a hassle than, I'm sure if I want to just go to Disney Plus and subscribe to ESPN, it's fine. But trying to use an existing service has not worked out well. So I used VPN, watched on Netflix. After the Becky AJ match, when I tried to move ahead to the next match, it would give me a quick screen of, this program is over, and then it would go back to the beginning. No matter, but I mean, in the timeline, it wasn't going back to the beginning, but whenever I put the timeline, it just played from the beginning. And then I finally had to reset, and then I got to the Punk Finn Balor match, which I ended up just skimming through because I figured Balor had no chance of winning. Then I saw Danhausen, and then I got the message that you're using a VPN blocker. Stop. And at that point, I didn't care about the men's match enough to fight with it anymore. So I just read the results. So that's my take, is that I did not watch the entire show in its entirety in order. So my thoughts are probably a little bit different than had I sat down for an entire 3 hours and watched. Um, my thoughts, though, on the women's match, it was fine. And again, this is where I am with WWE right now. Anyway, it's fine. I don't. There's just nothing there that entices me, and that I shouldn't say entice, but there's nothing there that makes me want to watch the next show. And the women's elimination match is that same way. To compare it to AEW, they recently did a little mini tournament to see who was going to face MJF at Revolution in a couple weeks, and it came down to Andrade and Hangman Page. And before the match happened, I said I would really like to see Andrade win because it's something new, it's different. And then Hangman won, and I was like, okay, well, we just saw this a few months ago, and actually, same match opened Revolution last year.
Hmm.
But AEW has done a job of putting some stakes into that match to make me interested to see it happen again. For me, not Raquel. I think Raquel should have won, but
What?
Rhea Ripley,
You think Raquel Rodriguez should have won?
yes.
Oh my God, no. Oh, I would have rather seen Nia Jax winning.
Well, you got lucky. She's now a tag team champion, so you know she's going to be on the Mania card doing
Well,
something.
maybe.
I mean, come on. If we get a Nia, is her partner Lash Legend, or
Yes. Yes.
if we get a Nia Lash Legend versus the Bellas match, you're just going to be in heaven. You're going to be like, make that a 60-man or 60-minute Iron Woman match.
Yes.
No, my feeling is Rhea Ripley is the safe bet. And I think someone pointed out, this is her 7th straight Mania match fighting for a title. And I think that's encompasses a lot of what WWE booking is right now, where it's just safe. And Jade Cargill, I can't remember if we discussed it when she came into WWE, but she was undefeated until her last match in AEW. But she didn't face anybody in AEW. And I don't think she's done anything in WWE to make me interested in Jade. She's had one title defense in 3 months.
That's not true. You and all the other internet people, you don't. She wrestled several times over the holiday tour thing at the house show, so she wasn't defending it on TV, but she
that's okay. Fine. Okay, I will.
And that is a internet narrative. She beat Keith Lee's wife. I can't think of her name.
Michin. Okay.
So
okay, sorry. I didn't keep up on the house show loop. I didn't. But my point is, what has she done on TV? Like the people that she has fought on TV also aren't on the caliber of.
Right. Do you think Bianca being hurt too has?
Yeah.
I think we were all headed towards a Bianca. I would assume that this would have been Bianca and Jade at Mania.
I think so. Yeah, and I hope Bianca's injury is getting better. I don't know if you've seen the picture of her knuckle being like 3 sizes bigger than a knuckle should be. And I don't know exactly what the injury is, but to be out for over a year with a knuckle injury,
right,
makes it be pretty serious. But what I'm saying, my point with and I don't know why I can't remember Rhea Ripley's name. I keep wanting to say Raquel because Raquel should have won. But Rhea, again, it's just, and again, we're 6 weeks away from Mania. They could do something to make this match mean something. But right now, it just, Rhea Ripley was the one person I didn't want to see win the match.
And she was my pick to win. And I had heard rumblings that Tiffany Stratton was going to win. So here's my 50, almost 3-year-old man's perspective on why they went this way. Because we look at last year, and this applies to Roman Reigns winning this year's Royal Rumble as well.
Mhm.
Last year we went with the dark horse. Jey Uso wins. It's, because people bitch, Cody
Yeah.
wins, Cody wins, so and so wins, Roman wins. They're cramming him down our throat. So we get something new and fresh with Jey Uso. Then the fans shit all over that. They hate that.
Yeah.
Charlotte Flair wins the women's rumble. It's the same old, same old. So you're getting a balance of both, and people complain about both scenarios. So then this year, Roman wins the rumble. People are complaining. I think Roman Punk is going to be a monumental match, in my opinion. I think it's something that is long overdue, and it is it's one of those matches I feel like it feels like a WrestleMania main event. Um, I think that Rhea Ripley and Jade could close out night one of WrestleMania. I think that we've gone back now to that safe bet with both Rumble winner and with Randy Orton winning Elimination Chamber, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I think there's something about Raquel. It just doesn't. It doesn't click for me.
My problem with Raquel right now is she, when she first came up to the main roster, and they told her to smile more, and she's just like this happy-go-lucky person, and now she's trying to be big mama cool,
Right.
I don't know if you watch Simon Miller on YouTube, but he'll always comment on her. He's like, Raquel Rodriguez, I'm a bad guy now because I wear sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like she's trying to be intimidating, and it doesn't work for her. She's just not intimidating. So I mean, that has been an issue that I've had with her for the last 6 months. Like there is a disconnect there with what the character is and who she is. But I think she's got to come along ever since I guess Nash made some comment to her.
Yeah.
And she's kind of reworked her style a little bit. But, of the 6 competitors, I mean, like we said, Rhea's just the safe bet, and I get it. And I'm not disagreeing with your reasoning. I buy it entirely. Tiffany, if Tiffany had won, well, didn't Jade win the title from Tiffany?
Yeah, I believe so.
We would have just been back repeating what we've already done.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss really, she's been in the tag team with Charlotte Flair for the last most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not really on that singles trajectory. Asuka, again, has the issue with Kairi Sane and Io Sky. Like, I think those 3 are going to be in some combination of a match at Mania.
Mm-hmm.
And then who is the last? Who am I forgetting? Yeah. So that's how important that person was to winning the match. I think if you put Raquel in there with Liv,
Kiana James.
Oh, Kiana James, yeah. Who, again, I don't watch SmackDown, but last I've seen of her is she has been like Julia's mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Like she isn't even presented as the wrestler portion.
Yeah. Right.
But I was gonna say with Liv challenging on the Raw side, if you had Raquel challenging for on the SmackDown side, it plays into that Judgment Day dynamic a little bit more. Whereas, again, I'm not disagreeing with you with Rhea. I just think it's, again, like you said, it's safe booking, and that's right now. Where WWE is for me is you got to shake things up. I need something besides just this is what we're doing because this is what we always do. And I think, and we'll talk about this probably in the weeks to come as we talk more about Mania. Mania tickets are down from last year. We said last week the number of reasons why. I don't think there's one specific reasoning to pinpoint on it. But to me, this kind of goes back to WrestleMania 11 or 21, where it's like it's that time for the next evolution, the next phase of what's going to take you through the next 5-6 years.
Right. And I do like the fact that Elimination Chamber, both the men and women's match, peppered in up and coming,
Mm,
established talent, and then even
mm,
I would say borderline legendary talent. Maybe not so
yeah,
much women's match because I do think Rhea Ripley, even though I mean she's young, but she's been around a long time, and I get
yeah.
that. I understand what you're saying in terms of her being the safe bet and maybe the fact that she has been in championship matches, but I think that also I think that as much as Jade has improved, I think that there's still a long way to go with her, and I think that
Oh,
Rhea,
I agree.
other than Charlotte Flair, I think Rhea Ripley is the next best partner for her to have.
I get that. Yeah, someone to lead her through the
Yeah.
match.
Uh,
If the match is going to go more than 4 minutes, yeah.
right. Yeah. Um, Women's Intercontinental title match. I did not expect to see the title change hands. I figured that Becky would get her come or
Yeah.
her. So do we get a rematch at me? Because I don't feel like this is going to be over.
Yeah.
But
And yeah, I don't know. And my feeling with this match, with the story that has been told over the last 6 months, why was Jessica Carr the referee?
mhm.
Why wouldn't Becky Lynch have found out, one, who her referee was going to be? And then once it was Carr, be like, no, we have had issues in the past. I do not, it's a Danny Davis situation. She's cheating me. And again, logic in illogical situation, adding context that probably doesn't need to be there. But then in that match, when you had the ref bump and you had everything go down, it's just, again, and this is as a 51-year-old wrestling fan who's been watching for 40 plus years and sat through the first 10 years of TNA where ref bumps were a weekly occurrence. It's just like, I'm over it. I want, and I hate it when AEW does it too. It's one of those things that should be stricken from the booking sheet. Or if you're going to do it, you get fined $10,000 for your match, because we know wrestling fines are legitimate.
Well, we talked previously about WWE. It was mostly your point of view,
Yeah.
and I disagree with it. But uh, do you think when you said WWE books for the moment and not necessarily for the
The
next,
long term, yeah,
yeah, do you think that that was booked for the moment of having Punk and AJ reunite in the ring later with both?
absolutely.
So, so
Yeah,
was it necessarily, because hell, they may book it Monday night on Raw that there's a rematch and Becky
yeah,
wins the belt back.
yeah. Well, and I mean, there's something that came out after, I don't know if you saw it, after the show was over, that we'll talk about for Friday night.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I'm heading with that. But do you think
But yeah,
is
I think
signed
the
to a
fact that they're in Chicago, I'm sorry, go ahead.
is AJ under a long term,
I
like
don't
he's
know.
not just doing a little blow off here?
I don't know. I mean, the fact that, she came in at Survivor Series and then wasn't seen again until this month. Like, I don't know what the plan is for her.
hmm All right, you were going to ask me.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot what I was saying. Oh, the fact that it was in Chicago at the United Center, which they hadn't ran in 34 since the first event at United Center, SummerSlam '94.
They haven't been there since then.
No, they run the Rosemont Horizon, where we saw Mania 22.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah. The last time CM Punk was at United Center was the debut of Collision.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking
So,
of that, I did like.
oh, and I would say real quick, because I hate Chicago, CM Punk having Chicago Blackhawk inspired gear, worst gear ever. Hate CM Punk now. Never want to see it again.
You're such a mark. I was just about to say, because I do feel like the Punk run this, since 2023, the end of 2023, from my perspective, and maybe it's because I'm older, and maybe it is what's happening, and we're seeing it in real time. I feel like this is kind of a redemption tour for both Punk and WWE. They've made amends, they've buried the hatchets,
Yeah.
And and this is going to sound cheesy because my level of Punk fandom, I've never like disliked him, but he's never been like Pipe Bomb Punk was probably my favorite incarnation of him.
Yeah.
And I did like him in AEW. I feel like he brought some authenticity and legitimacy to that product at the time. Um, and I feel like now I'm happy for him, I guess is what I'm getting at, because for so long he wanted that Mania spotlight. He wanted
Yeah.
to be respected. And I feel like after 15 years or whatever, 20 years, I guess, since he's been first around in WWE, that he has finally kind of gotten that respect that some guys never ever achieve. So I'm happy for him in that regard. And I liked the whole, because they were in Chicago and they did the Michael
Mm.
Jordan or I don't know
Yeah.
what to call that
The
entrance that,
Chicago Bulls entrance. Yeah.
yeah, the Chicago, thank you, not Michael Jordan. But part of me also, because the thing I still love about wrestling is not 100% knowing for sure what's going to happen. And part of me, there were a couple of times, just like in the Cena Gunther match back in December, the AJ Gunther match, there
Mm.
were moments that I'm like, this is going, Finn Balor's going to win. It's going to throw a monkey
Mm.
wrench. But I feel like the Punk Roman main event is too big to add a third person into it or to
Yeah.
change the belt at this stage. I do feel like Finn, unfortunately, and I know you're not a huge, I think from our previous conversation, he got hurt back in 2016, and it sucks that he
Mhm.
never really came back from that, and has
Yeah.
been kind of a mid, maybe upper mid card guy sometimes. But I I hoped that he was going to win it, and even if it was just for a brief time and then drop it again before Mania, but it was not meant to be. And I liked how Punk was embraced by, obviously he's in front of his hometown crowd, but even the IY or IWC, I feel like still loves Punk.
Yeah. I mean, I've said on the show before, I do think Punk needed to go back to WWE. I think it's a double-edged sword though, because as he's matured, say, instead of getting older, because I think you and
I
I have
like that
matured
better.
more than getting old. Um, what made the CM Punk character appealing to an audience isn't there as much. It's kind of like if when Steve Austin comes back and he's just happy-go-lucky, Steve, instead of fighting the authority, Steve.
Mhm.
It's fans got into it because Punk was he was the Punk. He was, the one that was going to do the pipe bomb and call you out, and now he's just like, hey guys, let's all kumbaya around the campfire. Um, I I was listening to the coach and Bishop Dryer, one of your favorite guys, FKA Baron Corbin,
Okay.
and
I
and they were
actually
talking.
like him more now that he's gone from WWE.
What listening to him talk and give his thoughts, I actually am coming around to him as a person. I'll
Yeah,
say.
I
I
think
don't know
that,
if I need to watch him wrestle, but yeah.
yeah, right. That has happened
Uh,
with wrestling personalities because I was not a Kevin Nash fan until
yeah.
listened to his podcast, and Eric Bischoff. I was the same way. And JBL, you get a
Mm.
different perspective and hear more of the human side and not just the character. And it's opened my opinions or whatever, however, my mind to different thoughts and different personalities. So anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, as I say, they were talking about the match, and they made some good points. Where one, Michael Cole saying, "Oh, Finn Balor's going to ruin the main event at WrestleMania." Why? Because if he wins, then the match is going to a match between Finn and Roman is going to suck because it's Finn Balor and not CM Punk. And I don't remember this. And again, something that could have been built up. Apparently, in his debut match, Finn beat Roman Reigns, and so there is a history there.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that they could have played on, but to kind of you know say Finn winning would ruin the match is just not good. Uh, Not storytelling, but it's not a good impression to leave on the audience.
Well, he should have finished the sentence with ruin WrestleMania for CM Punk.
Yeah, Yeah, that would have been a better way to phrase it.
Out
Yeah,
of the main event. But yeah, I know I agree. That's
yeah,
cutting the legs out from under your talent.
talent. And then even the way they were saying the way Finn has reacted to being asked, like, "Oh, what if no one gives you a shot at winning?" And instead of him being like, "Well, I'm going to prove it wrong. I am the best," it's just like, "Well, I got this match, and we're
Yeah.
going to fight." And so, and again, it all comes back to storytelling, how you're presenting the product, and also they mentioned that if Balor had won, what does that do with promotion for WrestleMania?
Hmm.
And again, I mean, with everything that's going on with all the changes, who knows how many shirts are going to wind up in Africa with, the kids think what happened at WrestleMania 42 is nothing like what actually is going to happen. But it's also then if Balor wins, even if you come back to Punk later on, as you mentioned, to reset the match, what if people buy tickets expecting Balor versus Roman, or fans that have now bought tickets expecting Roman versus Punk, and then if Balor wins. So I think the title match at Elimination Chamber was kind of a lose situation
Right.
because either you're messing up your main event or you're putting on a match that has no stake because everybody knows you're not going to mess with what you're already promoting.
Right. Well, and then that.
And again, that's not to take away from Finn Balor. I think Finn Balor hopefully at some point will get the push that the fans want to see.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. Well, and that kind of, we're going to save Danhausen debut for the
yeah,
meat of the conversation, but
yeah.
uh, we're talking about changing the main event, and this is my opinion. Cody is going to win the championship at SmackDown Friday night against Drew McIntyre, and we're going to get Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Um, when Randy won Elimination Chamber, I can imagine your reaction. Who did you think was going to win that match?
Cody.
Did you? I figured it would be either Cody or Randy.
Cody or Randy, yeah. And,
Um,
and again, going back to safety and unpredictability, um, all the injuries the division has had.
mhm,
Speculation, rumor is that Bronson Reed should have been in the match had he not been injured on
mhm.
Raw. I don't think he would have won.
No.
I almost, and granted, Monday they probably couldn't change things on the fly that drastically, like they did on Friday with Jay being taken out before Jey Uso, after winning the match and being put in Elimination Chamber, was attacked. And I almost messaged you throughout the week and said, this is what they should do. Like, if Bronson can't be there, pivot to somebody else, because everyone who commented after the match said Jay looked very upset that he actually won the match and was going to have to be in the chamber.
Mhm.
But yeah, take him out and again do something. Again, and I think with WWE having the Roman Punk anchor for WrestleMania, you could do something different with the SmackDown title and
Mhm.
do something out of left field or instead of going out of nowhere. Um, but again, I think it's kind of a safe play. And yeah, after the show was over, Nick Aldis announces Cody's getting the title shot on SmackDown, and I know people have been wanting to see Cody versus Roman or Cody versus Orton for the last year, so I get that match. But again, you're kind of cutting the legs off of Drew McIntyre.
Right. Well, what were your thoughts on, and we'll talk more about Cody and Randy in a second, but what were your thoughts on the masked man, another masked man finally being unmasked, and it turned out to be Seth Rollins, which I think a lot of people speculated that it was going to be him. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the first time when it was Austin Theory, now
Yeah.
it is in fact Seth Rollins. Were you surprised by that? I was a little surprised that they did it at Elimination Chamber because I feel like there was a lot going on with
Mm-hmm.
the surprises, if you will, with the box, and then of course uh,
Yeah.
Seth being unmasked.
Yeah. I mean, again, I have no idea what Seth's help. I'm assuming he is fine to go for Mania.
Yeah.
if they're going to
I
do
would assume
this.
that too, based on
Yeah.
the unveil.
After reading the SmackDown results where they unmasked some unknown guy, which I think is if you're going to unmask somebody and it's someone the audience has zero
Right.
knowledge of,
Indie guys, I'm guessing, right?
what's that?
Those were local indie guys, I'm guessing.
Well, they said the guy who trained at Seth's school.
Oh,
It's
okay.
one of Seth's students. So they're like, oh, see, the connection to Seth is there. And it's like, okay, yeah, but if I'm not online
Right.
knowing who this guy is, I have no knowledge that he's one of Seth's students. Um, so yeah, that was a very odd
Well, and then they
decision.
had the guy on Saturday night too.
On Saturday, another guy. So again, are these guys going to be seen going forward, or are they just random people? And then, one comment I've seen a couple of times today is, aren't cage matches supposed to prevent interference?
That's exactly like what the is happening with all these people running into this stadium. I'm like, I thought the same exact thing because yeah. Well, and it kind of happened. Didn't that happen last year too with
It's happened a few times, yeah.
didn't Seth curb stomp somebody last year that led to Cena
Uh,
getting
yeah, came in and Punk or Cody, didn't he? Punk or Cody? One of
Cody
the
was
two.
the champ. Punk.
Okay, Punk. Yeah, he Punk.
And that set up the
Yeah,
match with Punk and Roman
yeah,
and yeah, that's right.
yeah. And I mean, it goes back to Shawn Michaels coming up through the side of the floor. When he wanted, when he cost Taker the title to set up the WrestleMania 26 match.
Mhm.
So again, yeah, they need better interference protection agency. Maybe they need the APA out there to prevent. I don't know, but yeah, I'm surprised Seth was there. Obviously, I would say it's going to lead to Seth versus Logan Paul since he's the only member of the Vision left, with the exception of Austin Theory, who, is he in on this with Rollins? This is all a ploy. Um, you and I were there to watch Seth versus Logan the first time around, and I think it's the only match we saw that day from WrestleMania. And but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, are you?
I'm not excited about it, honestly. I would have. I mean, obviously, you've thrown in all these injuries that aren't predictable, and you
Yeah,
have to adjust on the fly. So I
yeah,
would,
yeah. I think a Seth Braun would have been a bigger match.
yeah, I would have much rather seen what the original plan was. I mean, really, honestly, I would have almost rather seen Seth stay with the Vision a little longer, and because now I just feel it to me it feels disjointed with all of the players in that, and then Heyman is also with Brock Lesnar.
Mm,
Like I would rather Heyman be either with just Lesnar
mm,
or just with the Vision. And we'll talk more about Brock here in the coming weeks too, with the open challenge and speculation with that. But I did like again, like I said before, the peppering in of
new
different
talent. Young.
talent, Javon Evans and Trick
Mm,
Williams. And Logan's not really new talent anymore, but I think that any of those other names were going to win? No, but I do think again, it's kind of like the Royal Rumble. They get those opportunities to shine a little bit. I would
mm,
have loved, honestly, if I could have picked one of the six to win, it would have been LA Knight. Um, but I don't think LA Knight versus Drew McIntyre is a WrestleMania caliber match. And it's not a knock on Drew, but I guess it kind of is. But I don't feel like I guess maybe the Randy Orton Drew McIntyre match would feel like a WrestleMania match, but I don't I think that Cody Randy is something that you've got the history. You don't need a whole lot of time to write this story.
yeah.
So to me, it's and was that the long-term plan for this? Who knows? But um it'll be interesting to see because then if you take Drew out, then what does he do? And then I guess it depends on if he loses the match, how does he lose? Does Jacob Fatu interfere?
Mm.
If Drew doesn't lose, what does Cody do at WrestleMania? Does he wrestle Jacob Fatu? So lots of questions to answer still, but we still got
Yeah.
get
I
there.
mean, I think if Cody doesn't win, he comes out. and he says, "What do you want to talk about?" And then he proceeds to tell us why he left AEW.
There you go. Maybe we get Cody Danhausen. So,
It's fun that you think that they're actually going to get Danhausen matches
well,
of importance.
and when let's talk about that because Danhausen is one of those characters that I don't know a ton about. I mean, I really don't remember seeing him until AEW, and I did look and see that he debuted in 2013, and I think he's had this consistent gimmick that whole time. Did you know much about him before AEW?
I mean, I knew of him a little bit before AEW, but I don't think I'd ever seen him wrestle.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen him actually. I don't know that I've seen a Danhausen.
I think maybe I've seen one, maybe two matches in total where he's actually been, not just somebody at ringside or interfering, like actually in the match doing moves. And I think Danhausen is an interesting figure in that he is as popular as he is because he is a character. Mm-hmm. It's not the wrestler that is over; it's the character. And I can't remember where I saw this, and I don't even know if it was in relation to Danhausen, but I think it fits Danhausen, and that is a meme wrestler works on the indies who only do one or two shows a month because then it stays fresh. But when you're being exposed weekly, the novelty wears off quickly. And that's where we'll get to that. First, let's start with Danhausen debut and work our way up to where Danhausen is going.
His WWE debut?
His WWE, yeah, the debut, the box.
Well, like we said earlier, I think that of the candidates, and these were the names I heard. Chris Jericho, which is why I'm wearing the Jericho shirt. We'll talk more about Jericho at some point. He eventually will come in.
He's never coming back to wrestling.
He may not. As oddly as it seems, Vince McMahon's name I saw floated out there, The Rock, and Danhausen. And of the four, I mean, obviously I didn't think it was going to be Vince, but I thought that Danhausen, other than Vince, I thought Danhausen was the most far-fetched, but like we said, makes the most sense from a character standpoint. And I liked it. I liked the presentation. I liked the Housettes or whatever they're, the women that were dancing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's going to become a part of his regular shtick. Is he going to be like Brodus Clay and have dancers or what? But I liked it.
I think they were kind of doing the fuckadactyl thing.
Yeah, they were. But it wasn't like a typical, and I think this is part of the reason why I liked it, even though I had seen the Danhausen presentation as, Danhausen in the back of teeth and whatnot. It felt different, but felt like it fit, if that makes sense. And, I've seen some clips on TikTok, and I was going to try to go back and watch the actual clip of him coming out because I felt like he got a pretty good reaction. Mm-hmm. But then I was watching some fan perspectives of it, and it's phone video, and people are booing in those sections. I don't know. What was your impression? Was this a flop or was this something that fans enjoyed?
Yeah. So when I watched it live, live to me, I had the volume down, so I didn't hear. I mean, I had it up just barely enough to be able to hear somewhat of what was going on, and then I saw the reaction comments online about it being booed. And I went back and I just watched, I think what WWE has posted on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And it didn't sound like booing, but then I'm also like, okay, did they, sweeten the audio for their post? Obviously if he's getting booed, they're not going to throw that up there. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting presentation. So here's the critical aspect of it. We said before, it doesn't make sense for his box to show up 2 weeks in advance. Why wait to open? And again, I fast forward, so maybe I missed something and you can tell me if I did. The box comes out, is on the stage or in the entranceway. Aldous and
Pierce.
Pierce pry open the door or pry open the crate and then just leave.
Mhm.
And it's like, do you not care about what's in the box? Why, when you open the coffin to see what, you're just like, oh, yeah, we opened the box. There's another box. All right, our job's done.
Yeah.
And then, so I that part, again, super critical snarkiness. Um, I didn't like that. I did like when they started coming out of the box, the dancers. I just wish it either would have been framed a little bit differently or they would have put up some more black carpeting or black curtains so you couldn't see them coming in from the hallway, coming in.
Mhm.
So it looked like they were more just coming straight out of the coffin,
Right,
like,
right.
like a
Yeah.
clown car.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
and so again, that's not a make or break situation. It's just like, oh, if you could have pre-taped it, you could have fixed that. I thought the song, I like the song. I think the song will get over if it gets played enough. But my question is, if I don't know who Danhausen is, what did this segment do?
Right. That's what I think, that this is the interesting part. It's kind of like with Powerhouse Hobbs.
Mm-hmm. Who?
Yeah, Royce Keys. WWE
Who?
has this level of expectation. Vince McMahon. I don't think this would have ever. Danhausen would have been a manager in the '80s or the '90s.
Mm,
He would not have been a wrestler. And who knows how they're going to do him here in
yeah.
2026. But yeah, you had to have a level of, because had I not known who Danhausen was and I just saw this happening in front of me, I would,
Mm,
what, this is to promote a Netflix show or so, you know what I mean? Like I would have been like,
yeah.
what is this?
Yeah. Especially given the way WWE operates now.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, you're 100% right. And I do think that maybe some of that mixed reaction was not because it's Danhausen, but it's because who or what is this? Because they don't watch, I think a lot of WWE fans still just watch WWE and they
Mm,
don't know who these other characters or players are. So, on one hand, WWE is expecting us to know who these people are. And on the other hand, they're not going through their due diligence of explaining who they are or the significance of them.
yeah.
So, yeah, I could totally see that where people would be like, what's going on here? I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah. And I didn't think about it until you had mentioned him and talked about it. But it is, I think, a very Brodus Clay situation. So fans that remember Brodus Clay may have had flashbacks to that. Um, so again, we go like, it didn't really work for Brodus Clay going forward.
Yeah.
What is it going to be with Danhausen? And again, it's one appearance. We have no idea what their plan is, how he's going to be presented. In AEW, he wasn't there every week. In fact, he was there so randomly that half the time I don't even think Tony Khan knew he was employed. But for me, and again, I wish I could be a successful promoter as the guy behind the makeup for Danhausen,
Yeah.
but I don't see him being anything more than the next generation's R-Truth
Well, and I think that there are folks that are happy
or
and
Santino Morella, and that's not a diss on. Hey, if you can get paid and not take bumps, then I think every wrestler would go for that. Everybody has their spot.
yeah.
So to me, I guess, are we looking at someone who's going to be a game changer in the business, or are we just looking for somebody who's going to fill 10 minutes of TV time?
And that becomes an interesting talking point too, because there are a lot of, and this is just off the top of my head, but you have Mr. Iguana, you
Mm.
have R-Truth, you have Joe Hendry, you have now Danhausen. Some of these more entertainment, let me up type of wrestlers versus, you know, the other talent that's there. So it will be interesting to see. But I think if you treat these folks like attractions, and we don't get 19 weeks of Danhausen coming out and dancing and handing teeth out to Michael Cole or whomever,
Mm.
that's going to be critical, I think, for the success. And the talent pools for both companies, AEW and WWE, are deep enough where you could rotate guys in and out, and women in and out, and keep it fresh, keep the product fresh, but also keep those talents relevant. And I think that becomes a balancing act where a lot
Mhm.
of times then, but then you also look at, because they've stopped doing house shows. So now there's been a lot of talk of that's why we're seeing so many injuries, because they're not used to those reps anymore. And
Mhm.
that's, so the future of wrestling is interesting to me because it has changed so much in the last, really, since I guess the pandemic. And so we don't see AEW touring as much. We don't see WWE touring as much.
Mhm.
It's TV night and pay-per-view night or PLE night, and maybe a couple of things sprinkled in and out of there. But um, I think Danhausen, as you demonstrated earlier with the mask, you're wearing the shirt right now.
Oh
You got
yeah,
the little micro brawlers. Did you buy those, or were those in the box
they
thing?
come in the crates. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a toyetic guy, and this is where I love
Mhm.
this. This is 5, 6 years ago when I switched into the world of marketing out of broadcast news. I pay more attention to those kinds of things, the marketable, brandable stuff. And last night I got email from Pro Wrestling Tees. I got an email from Collect Major, because
Mhm.
Collect Major has a deal with Danhausen. They've got a big rubber guy coming out. They've got uh, they've got a medium-sized figure now of him, and then they've got their bendies, the Danielle Hausen that we were talking about before we started recording
Mhm.
with Danielle Fisher from Boy Meets World. They've got those figures. So Pro Wrestling Tees was sending out, order your so who knows how long those are going to be available before WWE really kind of
Mhm.
jumps in there. Excuse me, but it's kind of like Harley Quinn. I, that's her name, right? In AEW,
Cameron.
Harley Cameron. I'm sorry, Harley Quinn. Duh. Sorry.
Harley Quinn is Kevin Smith's daughter. Yes.
Yes, a senior moment there. But yeah, you've got Harley Cameron with the I think Finn Balor for a minute there had the demon puppet because he was
Mhm.
there with Mr. Iguana, Santino and the Cobra, Mick Foley and
And
Socko.
so,
So you, as much as pure fans are like, I want to see wrestling. I mean, there is an entertainment marketability aspect to all of this, and while you may not see Danhausen main event WrestleMania, you may see his toys or shirts or dolls or face masks or whatever it is flying
mhm.
off the shelves, because he's just that attraction and that marketability thing. So
Yeah, and I think this is the one of the major differences between WWE and AEW. Always complain. You see it every time anybody goes to an AEW show. One of the major complaints, there was one merchandise stand, maybe two if you're lucky, if it's a big show. There's four shirts, and three of them are AEW shirts. Like, they don't know how to market and make money off of marketable things. This Danhausen mask, this came from a crate. I don't know if it was an AEW crate or a pro wrestling crate, but AEW weren't selling these,
yeah,
you know. But I would say within the next by WrestleMania, these will probably be up on Shop WWE Zone. And
why do you think that is? Because doesn't AEW work with pro, like they're
with
Impact?
Pro Wrestling T, you would think,
Are they not?
but I do not know why after 6 years they haven't improved their promotion. I don't know. And again, is it because everything has to go through Tony and he's not doesn't
Mhm.
have the bandwidth? I mean, I think one of the Young Bucks' wives was the head of merchandise
Uh-huh.
for a while, but I don't know. But I going with that, I think I joked with you, before Danhausen came out and there was speculation. I said, well, I hope he enjoys Nick Khan taking 85% of his merchandising money.
Yeah.
I hope that's a joke. But I also think that with the WWE marketing behind him, Danhausen, as popular as he is, will be even more popular, unless you have the anti WWE fans who say, "Well, now I'm not going to buy anything Danhausen because I'm not going to support the company."
It, you know,
Uh,
I know they've changed the structure because Kevin Nash has talked about it on his podcast. I don't remember how, but I mean, he still gets royalty checks on NWO merch and things like that. So, yeah, if they do this right, Danhausen will make more on merch potentially than, his
yeah,
in-ring stuff. So,
yeah, and I mean, if Yeet can be the number one selling T-shirt, obviously Danhausen can hopefully top that.
do you think because obviously you follow AEW much closer than I do, um, is this going to be I mean, I don't view it as a loss for AEW. Cody, I think, was a loss. Danhausen leaving, I don't think is a loss necessarily, but I think it's a gain for WWE in that marketing realm. I
Mhm.
don't think he's going to main event WrestleMania. I don't think he's going to win the world or maybe even the Intercontinental Championship. But I think, again, he's one of those characters that will pop up on the side of a semi or a lunchbox or, whatever, video games and that kind of stuff where WWE for 40 plus years has been the master of. Look at JCP back in the day, and we've talked about this.
Mhm.
You had the Rock and Roll Express. You had, some of these colorful, fun
Magnum TH, yeah.
characters, and they did little to no promote. They didn't have any action figure. The AWA beat JCP to the action figure game back in the day. They didn't
Mhm.
really. They had a handful of T-shirts, and that was about it. And I think that's where Vince McMahon, take his personal life out of the mix is a genius in the world of like branding and marketing and making a profit on those superstars, those men and women that devoted to him and to his product and his vision. And I think that Danhausen is another example of that. Brian Pillman Jr., thinking back to him and how they've kind of
Mhm.
rebranded him. Um, you know, there was a point where I thought we'd never see like a Danhausen in WWE, but now I think this opens the possibility for guys like Orange Cassidy and some of those other players in AEW, Harley Cameron, that are comedic. Tony Storm, would she ever go back as timeless Tony Storm? It's interesting to me too that WWE is keeping the So I'm guessing Danhausen has the rights to all of his.
I believe he owns the character. I mean, he's trademarked the makeup. He's everything. He owns it all.
I think, yeah, now that you said the makeup, I think you sent me one time, and I think I ended up putting it in the figure drive donation box, was a Danhausen makeup kit.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I just think that it's a smart move for everyone involved. I think, and it's not a knock against AEW, but like you said, I've not been to a live show for AEW, so I don't know what the venues are set up like. But I'll be curious when you go to Revolution later this month, if they've added any extra merch stuff or space or whatever the case may be, because that was the thing at Mania every year is like, I mean, hell, now they've got a store. It's like
Mhm.
a superstore that you go into even before the event starts. So, and I get that that's probably not always going to be the case. And I know Colt Cabana is one of the partners or founders of Pro Wrestling Tees, and he's a trainer now with AEW. He was on Tony Schiavone's podcast last week and talking a little bit about that stuff. But yeah, I feel like there's an untapped market for AEW to really maybe enjoy
Yeah.
success with as well.
Yeah. So run it back all the way to your first comment about not being Danhausen not being a loss for AEW. I don't believe he had been on TV in like a year and a half.
Oh wow,
So
it's been that long. Okay, I didn't realize that.
yeah, and I think the last appearance was maybe on an ROH pay per view. So um, so yeah, I don't think it's a loss for AEW. I mean, it's a loss in potential, but
Right.
not a loss in, oh my gosh, okay, we've lost Danhausen. What do we do now? How do
It would
we?
be like if Mox jumped back.
Yeah, and that's same way. Like I think when Cody left initially, it was a loss for AEW, but and I'm probably projecting just based on my feelings on Cody and what WWE has done with him. I think it's better off that Cody's gone. I don't know what Cody would be doing in AEW
Yeah.
right now
Yeah.
because of where he was when he was there. So, um, eh, yeah, and I mean, that's a whole nother topic of guy, people leaving companies. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going here. I'm just going to say that, yeah, AEW needs to step it up with their promotional game. But Danhausen, focus of this conversation, I hope they don't overexpose him
Right.
because, again, like you said, it needs to be the attraction. It needs to be, oh my gosh, there he is. It's a surprise when he comes out. Not like, okay, it's 8:55 on the show. It's time for the Danhausen segment, unless they give him Danhausen's
Pit.
den. Yeah, I was trying to think of a D
Oh,
word.
yeah.
Danhausen's den, and have him do a talk show. But if they do it, don't do it in the ring. Give him a Piper's Pit set. Especially now if you're not using a huge rampway, like you can recreate and maybe I don't know, but I don't know. I did see that he was asking if Stone Cold was still the general manager of Raw, so we'll see where. But
I like it. I think that again, I like especially WWE. At one point, it felt like you had all the cookie cutter, tattoo dude, muscles, black tights,
mm,
under their name or some first and last name combination that they pulled out of a name generator thing.
yeah,
And it feels like they're injecting more characters back into it, like it was back in the day, 80s. Danhausen, like I said, imagine that character coming out and um, being with someone taking on Hulk Hogan for the champion. I could have
yeah,
seen Danhausen being a little more evil and not so nice back in that era. But
mm,
I like it. I'm excited for it to see what happens with him. I've watched some of his stuff with Chris Van Vliet, out of makeup and just talking. And again, I
mm,
like hearing some of these stories and learning more about the people that are behind the characters. And I obviously hope and wish him success in what he's going to do. But
yeah,
yeah, like you said, because now and we're in an era now where it's guaranteed contracts. So if he's there and then he sits out for a little bit and then he's still getting paid.
yeah,
Back in the day, those guys were fighting for TV time and they weren't taken off for injuries because they didn't know what was going to happen. They weren't going to get paid either. So
yeah.
uh, in that respect, the business has gotten better. And so I don't think, I mean, sure, he's no gobbledygooker,
Mhm.
but I do think that, and I'm sure Halloween Havoc, when that rolls around for NXT, maybe he's a part of that. But it'll be interesting to see, will he be a part of the main roster? I'm assuming since he kind of debuted at a main roster event,
Mhm.
that he'll be a part of the main roster. So
Yeah. Well, and come Survivor Series time, will we see Gobbledie Hauser
well,
or
that's
Hausen, I should say.
um
Gobbledie
with,
Hauser.
Doink, how
Mhm.
they kind of played that character. And I love the original evil clown Doink. I loved. Now when Matt Bourne left and then they brought him in and Dink and all that, I think it got a little lame. But again, I wasn't the audience at that point. But
Mhm.
I could see them doing other Danhausen stuff. Did he and Jericho have any interactions in AEW? I feel like they did. Didn't they? Wasn't there a Jericho Hausen
Maybe,
figure? I think there might be
maybe.
a Jericho Hausen figure.
Mm.
So yeah,
Um,
it'll be interesting to see.
yeah, yeah. I guess to sum it up, I would ask you now that we've seen the reveal, 2020 hindsight, Monday morning quarterback booking. Is this how you would have debuted Danhausen?
I can't imagine another way to debut him. Honestly, I don't. I think it was Jericho. Like I said, Jericho being in the box made no sense. It had to be some over the top character. Abdullah the Butcher back in the day when
Mm.
attacked Sting. That now the funny one when Brother Love popped out of the box when the Undertaker was in the ring, and it was kind of a reunion for them. It's got to be something to me. The box has to be something over the top. Chainsaw Charlie when he cut out.
Hey, yeah, at least it wasn't Big Dick Johnson.
Yeah, God, but yeah, I don't. I'm not going to say that it was perfect or flawless, but anyone else in the box of the names that were speculated or floated or whatever, or debuting someone else from AEW or just debuting a new character, unless it's somebody that has that over the top, you know, maybe Obafemi kicking the door off, like stomping down to the ring. But yeah, I don't know how else you would have debuted Danhausen, at least, sitting here right now off the top of my head. What do you think?
I don't. I'm gonna have to wait and see what happens.
But I mean,
Again,
as
I
far as
don't.
the presentation, like how else
The
would
presentation, yeah. I mean, right before we started recording, I saw someone on Twitter posted Danhausen's debut in AEW, which was with Adam Cole in a match. Adam went under the ring to get a chair, and we pulled the chair out. Danhausen was attached to the chair, which I completely forgot about because what's that?
that was his debut in AEW?
I believe so. Yeah.
So I had to have seen him somewhere because I remember him coming out and I knew who he was. So obviously I've
Okay.
seen him somewhere before. So okay.
Yeah. I think that was a more of a surprise because obviously you're not expecting someone to be pulled out from under the
Right.
ring.
Yeah.
Whereas with the box, you're like, oh, what's in the box?
Yeah.
I just, yeah, I think the box, and again, as we said before, do the fans know who Danhausen is? When Abdullah the Butcher attacked Sting, fans knew who Abdullah was.
Yeah.
When Brother Love came out of the box, people knew Brother Love. When Big Dick Johnson came out of the box, people said, what the hell is wrong with this company? Why is there a fat dude in a Speedo
Yeah.
gyrating? When Danhausen comes out, people are like, and I don't know if, I mean, they announced the attendance is like the 19,000. I don't know how much the United Center holds, but is it also as we've discussed with the price of tickets, who's the fan that's there in the arena? Is it the diehard wrestling fan or is it someone who's just going to a WWE show and not, said, I paid thousands of dollars. I'm not going to cheer for anything because,
Right.
am I right? So,
Yeah. Well, interesting perspectives, folks. We want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts on Danhausen, Elimination Chamber, the road to WrestleMania. What is going to happen next in your thoughts? Let us know in the comments. We're going to start a WrestleMania series here very soon as well. Thanks for listening and or watching this week, and we will see you next time.